7:32. Shall we begin?
Recording in progress.
Okay. At this time, I would like to call the Temple City regular meeting for November 16, 2021 to order. Pursuant to AB 361 signed by the governor, on September 16, 2021, cities are allowed to hold city council meetings via teleconferencing, and members of the public can observe and address the meeting telephonically or electronically. To listen to the meeting telephonically, please call 1-669-900-6833, meeting ID 811-1858-2184, passcode 788-155, or through the city's live webcast on YouTube, Connect with TC. Madam City Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Chavez?
You're on mute.
Here.
Councilmember Mann? Councilmember Vizcarra?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist?
Here.
Mayor Yu?
I'm here. All right. And for those calling in, your audio will be unmuted during public comment and when public comment is open during an agendized item discussion. Public comment emails received prior to or during the meeting will not be read, but will be included in the record. At this time, we're very happy again to have Pastor Daryl Kelty with Temple City Community of Christ Church, located at 5851 Temple City Boulevard. He will lead us or provide an invocation. Pastor Kelty? You're on mute. You're on mute, Pastor.
Am I on now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
I tell people Bill Gates has a personal vendetta against me.
Yeah.
Bad joke, sorry. First, I want to thank all the city council and the staff and everything for the fine program we had Tuesday for Veterans Day. I was very, very impressed. I was glad to be able to participate. We might pray then. Our divine creator, we thank you for this world that you have created. We thank you for this beautiful day that provides warmth and light for all we do this day. We thank you that we are able to live in this community in order that we might enjoy its benefits from all it has to offer us. It is for this reason that we would come into your presence this evening to ask your blessing upon us all, that what we're about to do this evening may be to build a better city, a better community, a better world around us. May this city council and their staff have your wisdom to be with them as they seek to do those things that make this an even better community. We know not what the future may bring, but would ask, dear Creator, that in all we do and all we say, just not for the just generation, but for those generations to come after us, that they might look to the future with hope, anticipation, eagerness, and a positive outlook. That those future generations may look back and say to each other with pride that each and every one of us did our good job in preparing this community for a better world tomorrow. This we ask for you and thank you very much. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor, for the invocation. At this time, would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is ceremonial matters presentation. There is none tonight. And next item is public comment on items not listed on the agenda. The time for public comment starts now. I'll ask any member of the public watching at home to call in at the Zoom number. Once you're on, the city clerk will make sure you are able to speak. Madam City Clerk, are there any public callers?
Mayor Yu, I do not see any callers on the line.
Okay. Are there any public email comments? Email public comments?
No, Mayor, there are no email requests to speak.
Okay, we'll just wait a little bit to allow people to call in. Well, with nothing more from the public and the reasonable time has been given for them to call in, I will close public comment and move on to the next item on the agenda. The next item is a consent calendar. All consent calendar item may be approved in a single motion as recommended unless removed for further discussion. If members of the City Council or persons in the audience wish to discuss any matter listed on the consent calendar, please address them at this time. And I will ask any member of the public watching at home to call in at the Zoom number. Madam Clerk, do we need to start the time clock on this one?
Thank you.
Yeah, and Madam Clerk, do we have any callers at this time?
We have one caller, and I've requested the caller to unmute.
Yeah, caller, if you want to address the City Council, please unmute and state your name so then you can address the City Council at this time. While we're waiting, Madam Clerk, do we have any email public comments?
Mayor Yu, there are no email requests to speak or comments.
Okay. We'll wait a little bit to allow people to call in. So with nothing more from the public and a reasonable time have been given for them to call in, I will close public comment. And I'm ready to entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Make
Mayor,
a
you
motion
would make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Second,
It's moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Mann,
Yes.
Councilmember Vizcarra,
You're on mute. Councilmember Scar, you're on mute.
Yes.
thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist,
yes.
Mayor Yu,
Yes, so the consent calendar has been approved. Next item is public hearing. There is none. Next item is unfinished business. We have a couple items, 2-3 items here. The first item is fiscal year 2021, first quarter financial review, treasurer's report, revenue, expenditure, and capital project summary reports and budget amendment. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Yu and members of the council. Happy to bring forward two kind of positive items for this evening to discuss. The first one will be a presentation by the city's administrative services director, Susan Pagaras, and she'll go over what I think I could describe as a solid foundation of a recovery. You remember last year, this time last year, we were very concerned about how the pandemic was going to hit our revenues with the lockdown, the quarantining, and all the other health mitigation measures that had to be done in order to get through the time without the vaccines was significant. We just met with our sales tax representatives from HDL last week, and we are seeing a robust return. We are not seeing revenues back to their pre-pandemic level, but the growth has been significant, especially in areas of of hospitality, meaning restaurants. We do have one hotel, but restaurants is a significant portion. We've been seeing a robust return in our property tax revenues, as anybody has been reading recently about the sales of homes, single family homes in particular, which the city represents significantly from a land use perspective, is also very robust. I would call it a stable foundation, because we are still not at the pre-pandemic levels that we were. We are still below those, but we have recovered extremely well and can give us a clear guide path to the future financially. So Susan will go over our first quarter for 21-22. So I'll turn it over to her if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, Director Paragus.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. This presentation should be quick, as you know, the first quarter usually is not a big indicator of how our financial status is until possibly mid-year or even third quarter. So for tonight, our recommended actions is to receive the fiscal year 2021-2022 first quarter financial review and related reports, and also approve and authorize staff to revise the revenue budget for fiscal year 21-22. The presentation overview I'll just go over the analysis, go over the revenues, expenditures, and fund balance for our main fund, which is the general fund, and then come back with a conclusion and the outlook for the city. So in analyzing the funds, our general fund is on target except for one property tax revenue, or one revenue, which is a property tax. Everything else is on target. Our non-general funds are also on target with the revenues and expenditures. Additionally, there is one proposed budget amendment I'd like to request, and it's an additional $110,775 for our property tax revenues. What I did was I based it off our actuals of fiscal year 2021 and added a 1% increase, which gave us this additional amendment. So the expenditures, as I mentioned before, have no changes. So our estimated net operating surplus increases to $332,190. However, when we apply our one-time expenditures, such as the matching for our SB1 funds, our surplus is reduced to $111,190. However, our fund balance at year end still remains very strong at almost $21,520,000. This is the pie chart that I like to use just to show you what type of revenues are mainly that we earn. You can see the taxes are at 46.1%, and that includes that $110,000 budget amendment. The intergovernmental is also property taxes in lieu of property taxes. And so in total, these make up about 82.1% of our total general fund budget revenues. With the allocation, or with the budget amendment, and not including the $6,000 transfer, our total proposed general revenue budget is almost $14,788,000 for the year. For the expenditures, again, there are no changes. So I'm showing the adopted budget that was approved by council back in June. Our total general fund expenditure budget remains at $14,682,740. With that, in the adopted budget, we're only showing about $415 surplus with the one-time budget. However, with this budget amendment for our property tax revenues, we are showing the surplus of $111,000. And here you can see our estimated fund balance is the $21,520,000 estimated fund balance. So in conclusion, this surplus is caused, as Mr. City Manager mentioned, property tax revenues are very strong for us. Our higher sales tax also is good for us. For this first quarter, compared to last year's revenues, we are up $18,000. So sales tax revenues hopefully continue to be strong in this next quarters of this fiscal year. And additionally, as you recall, when you approved the agreement with Athens, we received a $300,000 in lieu franchise fee from Athens, which helped us get a surplus for the general fund. So our outlook, this may affect our revenues, especially with sales tax, depending on our coming winter season, how the COVID cases are affected. So if cases increase, would the county increase also the restrictions? And this could potentially decrease our sales tax revenues for the year. So we're hoping, or I'm hoping that the cases will remain steady and restrictions will not additional restrictions will not be imposed. The good thing, again, as Mr. Cook mentioned, higher home sales price continue to occur. And despite the slowdown in sales these last couple of months, Temple City just continues to increase in price, home sales price. And then additionally, what I'm seeing also is that the building and construction activities are rising. There is one mixed-use property that will be coming in and is, I believe, ready to pay for their permit fees of over $300,000. So that's a good sign also for the economy in Temple City. So tonight, the recommended actions, as previously mentioned, is for City Council to receive the first quarter financial review and related reports that are provided in the staff report, and also approve and authorize that one budget amendment for the property tax revenues for fiscal year 21-22. And I'll take any questions you may have.
Yeah. Okay. So I will. It's time for council to ask questions. So starting with the Councilmember Chavez, any questions for Director Paragus?
Questions, thank you.
Councilmember Min.
No questions. Thanks.
Councilmember Viscar.
No questions.
And Mayor Pro Tem Stringquist.
No questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have any questions either, and appreciate the report. And at this time, we would like to open up public comment. I'll ask any member of the public watching at home to call in at the Zoom number. Once you're on, the City Clerk will make sure you are able to speak. Madam Clerk, are there any callers at this point?
Mayor Yu, we have one caller, Ms. Keelan. I've asked her to unmute if she wished to speak, and there are no other callers.
Okay. So do we have any email comments?
Mayor Yu, there are no email requests to speak or email comments.
Okay. All right. So we'll wait just a little bit longer to see if there are any public comments. So when nothing from the public and a reasonable time have been given for them to call in, I will close public comment and bring it back to the City Council for discussion. At this time, are there any final questions or comments from the council members? So starting with Councilmember Chavez.
No, nothing, thank you.
Councilmember Min, any comments, questions?
No, nothing in particular, but I do want to thank Director Paragus for the report. And it's always informative just to see where we're at, even if the first quarter isn't representative of the entire year. Thank you.
Councilmember Viscara.
I have no comments.
Mayor Pro Tem Stringquist.
No, just thank you, Susan.
Yeah, I too don't have any particular comments or questions. Just want to thank Mr. City Manager and thank the Director Paragus for the report. It is always encouraging to hear we're doing well, even for one quarter. So at this time, I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor Yu, I'll move that we receive the fiscal year 21-22 first quarter financial review and reports and approve and authorize staff to revise revenue estimates as indicated in attachment A.
Second,
So we move and second it. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Councilmember Viscara?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist?
yes.
Mayor Yu?
Yes. So moving on to the next item is Primrose Park Public Art Recommendations. The City Council is requested to approve the public art recommendations for 5 locations and allocate art in public places funds not to exceed $50,000. So at this time, I'd like to ask Mr. City Manager, do you want to get the discussion started?
Mayor,
Yes.
I need to recuse myself, I believe, from
Oh, yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So all you have to do on this one is just turn off the microphone and turn off the camera. You don't have to leave the meeting, but if you're not participating on mic or camera, that'll be just fine. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We forgot to mention that earlier. Thank you.
Do we need to call her to let her know that we're done with this item?
She's listening, so she'll
Okay.
be able to see it, but her camera should be off though.
Okay, all right.
There we go. We're now we're good to
She's
go,
off
sir.
and her microphone is muted. So, Mr. City Manager.
I'll be
Well,
brief,
the-
Mayor Yu. Thank you so much. As you know, Primrose Park is moving along with some delays that we've had. We're looking for an opening sometime in mid-February. While that's going on and construction is moving at a much more rapid pace as we speak. Mr. Matsumoto, along with the ad hoc of you, Mayor Yu, and Councilmember Viscara, and two community members, Mr. Hepler and Mrs. Keelan, have been working towards public art with the Primrose Park project. So with that, they have some recommendations for the council to consider and fund, and so we can get started on those as well. So with that, I'll turn it, Mayor Yu, I will turn it over to Mr. Matsumoto. If I may, please.
Yeah, please, Director Matsumoto, good evening.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Yu and members of the City Council. Tonight we have a presentation regarding public art recommendations. The recommendations were drafted and created by the Primrose Park Art Elements Ad Hoc Committee. As City Manager Cook had mentioned, that consisted of Mayor Yu, Councilmember Viscara, as well as 2 former arts commissioners, Kathy Keelan and Robert Hepler. So the ad hoc committee met over 4 meetings, discussed a variety of different art options, and really honed down these 5 recommendations that we'll be presenting today to the council. So what we'll take a look at, I'll jump right into it. And with each one of those locations, if there are any questions, I can stop at any point to address any questions that council may have. But what we're going to take a look at first is our butterfly bench art location, which is location 1. You'll see it highlighted at the bottom of the concept drawing, which is located adjacent to Primrose Avenue. We did some more refined work, and that location is what's being proposed is a half circle bench area, butterfly bench area. So you'll see that noted in the rendering on the left with one, there is an adjustment here. We are recommending 1 large bench in the middle and 2 medium-sized benches on either side of this location. The location will be a concrete pad with the butterfly benches installed on that concrete pad, which is next to the walking path as part of the Primrose Park. On the right-hand side, what you'll see is some of the landscaping that's being proposed as well. So we're looking at taking an opportunity to plant some flowering landscaping to attract and encourage butterflies naturally to be in that location as well. At the top is a potential sign that could be added to the location, demonstrating and showing different California butterflies that are local to this region. With this slide, you'll see an actual photo of the butterfly bench itself. So the cost for these is, for the large, it's roughly $4,000 and just over $3,000 for the two medium-sized benches. We're showing and demonstrating the monarch color scheme for the butterfly, but we did get confirmation from the vendor that we're looking at purchasing these from, that they could also paint and have colorings of other butterflies. So it's something that the ad hoc committee had discussed and that they were interested in, and not only having just one monarch butterfly, which would be the large center showcase butterfly, but utilizing one of the other options of the California butterflies for the color scheme. So that could be decided upon at today's meeting, in addition to allocating the funding, would be to determine, in addition to the monarch butterfly, which of the other designs would be wanted for the two other benches.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
So that slide that you have before us, Adam, no, the other one, the one that with the lady sitting, is that the actual bench that's going to be going in there?
Correct. So it's a decorative.
That looks more like a chair or a seat than a bench to me. So I'm not sure. I mean, and then you indicated there's going to be one large and two medium. So is the one there a large or the medium, or?
So we were limited in it's a little bit of a custom design, the monarch design. So the one that they sent us that they've done, it's not an off-the-shelf color that they offer. This would be the smallest of the benches they offer. So if you look at the dimensions listed, they're closer in width to being more of a full bench. So for the largest bench, you would probably be able to get up to 3 people on the bench of the largest one, and then probably 2 on the medium size. And then for the smallest one, it's basically meant for 1 person. But we wanted to just demonstrate the color design of the monarch butterfly. So this is the smallest bench, which is not, in terms of the size, what would be recommended.
So if this is the small one, then the large one, which is going to sit 3 people, as you say, that seems going to be pretty big, right? I mean,
yes.
And it's going to have the wings on the side of the bench as well, or?
Yes, so that's part of the art component of it. The inspiration that the ad hoc committee had was, if you've had a chance to visit in different downtown Los Angeles areas, there's the angel wings that you see painted on buildings that you can stand in front of. And they took this idea of being able to have this angel, and in this case a butterfly background, where you can sit and take a photo and it being a part of that. But yes, they would be fairly large structures. So what's listed in the dimensions on the size is 86 inches wide, which would be roughly roughly 7 feet wide. So it is a large piece, but they all fit within that half circle area that would be created and carved out as part of the park. So they are meant to be large, more stable.
So my understanding is that these are not custom made; these are off the shelf, right?
The butterfly component is off the shelf, and then the color design would be.
I'm not so much concerned about the color, but the actual design. This is an off the shelf so-called bench.
Correct.
Is there any reason why we couldn't get a picture of the actual bench that's going to be installed rather than the one that's before us now?
Sure, I can pull that up off the website if you'd like to take a look at that.
Yeah, I just want to kind of get a concept, because when you say benches, that picture, I mean, in my mind, doesn't look like a bench. I have no problem with the concept. I think they're beautiful, but it would be nice to get an actual feeling for what these benches are going to look like. We know that it's not going to look like the one that's before us right now, I'm assuming. I mean, you don't have to do it now. I'm just trying to figure out
But there is actually is a wider.
So is that a bench there that's before us then, or?
That's the bench.
Okay,
Yeah.
so okay, so that's quite a bit different than what we're looking at on the report, though.
Yeah. So
I'm just, my thing is that, when I'm looking at a report and I'm getting a report of what we're going to do, it would be nice to have something that actually represents what we're going to do, rather than just throw up some photo of a butterfly that has no relevance to what we're going to do at the park itself. So the one that's before us now, that's more representative of what's going to be going in at the park. And this looks
Yeah.
like this is the, okay, so.
This
And
is
then the color schemes will be whatever we decide, I guess, at that
correct.
point, whether it's a monarch or something else. Okay. All right. Thank you for pulling that up.
Do any of the other council members have questions regarding the butterfly bench?
When we saw them and we saw the other ones, they were beautiful. We couldn't resist. We said, yeah, let's go for it.
What other ones are you talking about?
The other pictures that they had with the colors, like the one you showed previously.
Okay, but those, we don't have those before us. You guys saw them, we didn't see them. But that's my only concern, is that, I mean, I agree. I don't disagree with what we're doing here at all. I think it looks great, but I'm looking at a report that doesn't reflect what we're actually doing, and for the life of me, I cannot understand. If you guys saw them on the ad hoc, why weren't they just given to us to see as well?
no, we actually did not see any more than this picture. This is meant to represent a color scheme, and then the picture that Director Matsumoto just pulled up, that shows a wider base. Right here, the lady is sitting in the middle portion. The other ones, the bench seat is wider. But we only saw this one with the color scheme.
Can I ask a question about the previous slide?
Correct.
In this one, you mentioned the middle bench would be large, but this plan shows that it's small. So
Yes, this was a previous draft version. I had thought we swapped this out, but this was part of the initial iterations. So what's being recommended is a large bench in the middle and 2 of the medium benches on either side.
okay, so from a space standpoint, that large bench would fit in that space.
Correct. Yes. There would be plenty of clearances.
Okay, and also in this picture, that semicircular border, is that going to be a wall, or is that just outlining the paved area separating the, I guess the landscaping behind it versus the decorative concrete paving? So there's a wall.
Yeah, it wouldn't be an actual wall itself. It's listed as a concrete header. So it's just a slight grade variation to define that border of the edge of the concrete pad, the half circle pad.
Oh, okay. So it extends along the entire, I guess, circumference of
Correct.
that.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
If I could add, I think the art committee actually recommended that we plant plants immediately around the circle, and there will be plants that are complementary in color and also would be attractive to butterflies. So we would not just see butterfly benches, but we also hopefully will see butterflies there as well. So
And
there's no wall.
you will see butterflies, because it's the one, I think it's the one on the right top, the yellow one. We have those in our backyard, and they do attract a lot of butterflies. So
That's great.
it will work, I think.
Any other questions on the location 1, the butterfly benches? All right. If not, we'll move on to the second location. What we're going to be taking a look at is it's in the middle of the park, adjacent to the, or in between the exercise equipment area, at least on this rendering, to the top of it, and then the playground to the bottom. What the ad hoc took a look at was doing a child bronze sculpture at this location. Again, this is a little bit of an adjusted layout as opposed to what was included as in the concept design, which was just a placeholder. Again, the area would be defined with a decorative concrete paving to give it a distinct area and definition of where that child bronze sculpture would be located. The sculpture itself is a young girl holding a parrot. And this was one of the things at the ad hoc committee. You'll see it, this use of the parrot and that theme carried along in the next location, our tile mural, of incorporating, some of our local, animals in the art and in the sculpture. So again, this is a more of an off-the-shelf design. The parrot would be modified a little bit to mimic and look more like the parrots that we do see in Temple City. It's a little under 4 feet tall, the cast bronze sculpture, and then it would be installed at grade in that decorative concrete location of the park. And again, this sculpture would be really in concert and playing against what you'll see in the next location for the Tao Art Mural.
Do we have in the budget to perhaps do I know this one depicts a young girl, to do a young girl and a young boy together?
For some of the art pieces, and this is one of them, it's an off-the-shelf piece. We could connect with the manufacturer.
So these are off the shelf as well, these sculptures and of the child?
Correct. Yes. So they do have a variety of different castings, but part of the price point of where it comes in at is, it being an off-the-shelf piece.
I noticed in the budget that we weren't over budget on this. We were actually under budget. I just had a thought that if we're going to do, I think it's a great idea to have the child bronze sculptures with the added touch of the so-called Temple City parrots, I guess. But it'd be kind of neat to see a little boy and a little girl together, perhaps. I don't know.
We can explore that if that's the desire of the council. We can definitely reach out and see what could be done with the castings. I know they do have castings of children at play, and there's a lot of different options, and it might be a simple request to do that and then do an added casting of the parrot, with maybe one of the other options. But that's
or maybe something like the one of the children standing like we see, and then maybe another child. Sometimes I've seen this before where the child will be kneeling or sitting or something like that, but they're like a pair.
They could even be separate castings that are just installed next to each other to get that effect.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about one casting with two pin. I'm talking about separate castings, a little boy, little girl, maybe something like that.
Yeah,
anyway,
actually, the picture that Director Matsumoto has, the bronzeman.com, and we go there, you're going to see a number of different kits. So yeah, if the council decides, we can always add that. I think it's a great idea. Instead of just one child, we can look at a couple of them.
Maybe we can get two for the. Maybe we can get a deal if we buy two rather than one. I don't know.
Yes. Well, with this being, again, off the shelf, an add-on is not going to extend out our timeline, especially if it is something that's already casted. So that's definitely, if that's the direction, we can take a look at and bring back for the council to consider. Any other questions on the bronze sculpture? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the location 3, which would be the San Gabriel Mountains Tile Mural. As you'll see in the expanded box, this is right next to where the child bronze sculpture would be located. It's actually on the north boundary of the property. Again, these are just the architectural designs of the structure that would be built in order to display the Tile Art Mural. If you'll look at it, it is angled. It's angled with intent to be able to work again in concert with the child bronze sculpture. So it sits at the same angle as that. The structure itself would be fully encased and enclosed. So that was one of the concerns of the ad hoc committee, is if you're creating another display wall, that it could be an area for people to hide behind, or, you know, an area that, you know, just you wouldn't be able to see behind. But it's a fully built out structure, so you wouldn't be able to actually get behind this display area for the tile mural. The actual display area itself would be roughly, you know, roughly 7 feet tall by 10 feet wide. But again, these are the architectural drawings for the actual structure itself of where the tile mural will sit. And then what we're taking a look at now is a rendering of what that would look like with the child bronze sculpture in front of it. The back design, which features the white-capped San Gabriel Mountains, some of our local floral and fauna. You'll see citrus fruit, which was, you know, at one point something that you would see in Temple City. You have the parrots as well carrying over that theme. And then at the bottom, which is part of the tile mural, would be camellia flowers as well as primrose flowers to be a part of the design. So the design itself, this is a rendering that was put together by the, inspiration that the ad hoc committee had put together. They did find a artist at the Sawdust Festival by the name of Jesse Bartles. And what I'll show next is some of those examples of pieces of tile art that Jesse has created as an example of what this would, as a photograph, look like now, but then transitioned and turned into an actual tile art piece. And I did include in part of the cost, if it is something that's desired by the council, is potentially to do an actual rendering, so you can see with a little bit more detail what the tile art would look like versus what this concept inspiration photo looks like right now. So just really quickly, these are Jesse Bartles tile murals. So you can see that translation of the colors and the glaze on the tile and how that would look in a tile format. And I have one other example, again, of a large scale, tile art installation that would mimic what we would be commissioning the artist Jesse Bartles to create for the city. I'll go ahead and back it up just so we can look at the concept design and see if the council has any questions regarding this piece at location 3.
Yeah, Adam, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So I understand that these, the one that you have before is sort of a photo, which
Correct.
is why it's so clear.
Right.
And then go to the next one, that one. Okay, so
Mhm.
so this would be the how it would actually look, or at least the design. But
Correct.
this one is a lot different than the next one. So go to the next one and you'll see how the sky looks like it's cracked and there's all these lines. I mean, so which one would it be? Because to me, I mean, I would prefer the first one rather than the second one. It seems to be more representative of the photo that you're showing us. This seems to be more, the one that's before us on the screen right now seems to be more of a, I don't know, a pop art kind of rendering. It's not as closely as the photo, I suppose.
So these
So
were.
do we choose which one we want, or does he choose? How is that going to be determined?
I think it's a little bit of both. The city can definitely relay some of the more important design elements that they would want included. In terms of the two different designs, we just wanted to show, what the artist was capable of. But if you look at what's being proposed as part of the concept design, it would more closely fit the concept design, this inspiration with
Because
this
this one
style.
right here, the one you're showing right now, we didn't get that in our report. Okay, that
Didn't it?
no, it was not in our report. That was the only one we got, or at least the one I got, only has the second one. I don't know
Yeah,
if
yeah,
everybody
yeah,
else
yeah,
does.
same way,
Sure.
same way, yeah.
Yeah, so we didn't get
Um,
this one, and I didn't really like the one that was in our report because it
Sure.
just seemed too
Maybe
choppy. But
abstract. Mhm.
this one I think looks really nice and is more reflective of what the photo that you came up with,
Yeah.
the artist rendering. I don't know. I mean, just my
Sure.
opinion.
Sure, we it's we were trying to turn this around as quickly as possible. So in the course of actually submitting the staff report, I was trying to find, like you had mentioned, some more closer representations of what potentially it could look like. So that's why I've added it on for this slideshow. But yes, I think between the two and the concept design that's been curated by the ad hoc committee, it would lend itself better with more of this style and this design of Tile Mural.
If I may just add to that, to answer Councilmember Chavez's question. Initially, one of the suggestions the ad hoc committee was that we asked the artist to create the actual drawings or suggested renderings for the council to consider, but we didn't want to take it so far because we wanted to make sure the council is agreeable to what was proposed tonight. So one of the next step is that now that we heard the council's opinion or discussion, then we can go back and ask the artist to prepare a rendering, and then we can bring it back for the council for consideration. And then Councilmember Chavez, we can ask him, this is, or tell them that this is what we prefer.
Yeah, because I think if you compare like this one that's right now on the screen, if you compare the not this one, but the one before, this one with the artist rendering, go back to the original artist rendering, Adam, that one, it seems to be more in tune with each other. There's not that big difference. So, I mean, I don't know, that whatever council decides, but in my opinion, it would seem to, if we're going to, and I like this photo, I think it's a great photo. I think it would look better on the first, that one than it would be on the next one.
Tom, this one's more realistic. The other one's more abstract.
Yeah, there you go. That's the word
And I
was
think it
looking
would be
for.
a good idea if because I think I sense where everybody's going. If we tell Adam that this is more the style that the council wants, unless I'm wrong on that, but it sounds to me like we're probably pretty safe in saying that we want more of this style than the abstract style. Would you agree, Vince?
Yeah.
Definitely.
William, do you like this one?
Oh, you were talking about in terms of the styles of the two?
Yeah.
I guess I'm still having trouble reimagining the photo into this, so I'm maybe not as imaginative as you guys. But I think for the purposes of the park, I do agree. I think that other one gives this almost image like the tiles are broken for the portion that depicts the sky.
Yeah.
And for the untrained, non-artistic eye like mine, looks like a manufacturer's defect. So
I thought somebody had taken a hammer to it and just pounded it up, or it kind of looks like that. But that's art,
Vandalized.
Yeah, it's been vandalized already, but there are people out there, I'm sure, that would love this as well. So I mean, art is what art is, and everybody has a different view of it. So.
Yeah. So we really did not want to go too far. Now hearing what the council said, we can ask the artist when he prepares his drawings for us to consider that he takes into account what we discussed tonight.
Well, especially with this one, this one has birds in it,
Right.
and the birds are very clear. And of course, the photo rendering has birds in it also. So it would kind of make sense to, if you really want to kind of get something close to that, that would be the one that would make more sense.
Yeah.
I definitely think I have enough to move forward with if that's the council direction. And I think what we can maybe describe it as is more of a painted tile mural, which I think is representative of that first example. More of a painted tile mural, as opposed to more of the abstract mosaic tile, which is listed in this photo. So I have that in my notes, so we can have that ready at the time of recommendation or during discussion. Any other comments or questions regarding the first tile art mural?
Yeah, I do, just so I understand. So based on the plan view of where this location is proposed, it's shown the mural at an angle relative to the property line. Is that how it's actually going to be set?
That's intentional. Yes. It was meant to be at an angle because of how let me see if I can zoom in on this portion a little bit. Can I zoom?
Well, you don't have to. I think in the staff report, I see that portion that's kind of offset. So
right.
I just want.
Yeah, if you look at the way the open lawn area is situated, it's at an angle, right? So it kind of carries that angle where if you're walking, you're not walking like dead on at a 90, you're walking at an angle. So it's meant to mimic that carry over that same angle, so everything is in line.
And so that portion that kind of angles out, that's like a thick.
Correct.
Wall.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, it's not it's a fully formed wall behind it again, and that was one of the astute considerations by the ad hoc, was that they didn't want that location behind the tile art mural as somewhere where you could go behind and hide, or it's completely blocked off. So it mitigates any of those concerns. Yeah,
hide, or if nothing else, it's very hard to clean, as it converges into a tiny sliver of a corner, trash would just gather in there. So we just said that, let's eliminate that hard to clean, hard to keep safe corner. So we just build it up solidly.
And how does that connect with the perimeter?
Perimeter, it's connected. The perimeter wall is right behind it.
There's an actual boundary fence, a wall that would be behind this structure. This structure actually would you can kind of see it in this rendering.
So it's the perimeter wall. It's an independent structure.
Correct. Yes, it's an independent structure.
Okay.
So you're able to see it a little bit in this rendering, but the perimeter wall would be actually below the height of the top of the actual mural. And it's an independent, separate structure. It already exists there now. So really it's the tile mural display structure would be built new, just adjacent to that, but they wouldn't actually tie into one another at all, other than just butting up against each other. So there's no gap in between.
Okay. And I think this picture actually answers my other question. I was going to ask how the bronze sculpture was going to be positioned relative to the mural, but I'm assuming this picture is representative of that positioning.
Correct. So the idea behind the ad hoc was that the sculpture, when taking a photo of it or interacting with it, the tile mural would almost serve as like a photo backdrop of if you're taking a photo with the sculpture. And again, the idea of the parrots in the tile mural as well plays into that idea that, they're working together, both art pieces, and they play off of one another.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all the questions I have for the mural.
Okay. If there's no others, we'll go ahead and move on to the location 4. Now, this was a new location identified that wasn't part of the original concept plan. Part of the reason why the committee had looked at this was, they really wanted to find more opportunities to add public art to the project, because there were cost savings with some of the off-the-shelf items like the butterfly bench and the sculpture. It allowed to expand out to different areas. So what we're taking a look at is the north exterior elevation on the right-hand side of the restroom and storage facility. That is facing towards the park, and that really, the ad hoc thought would be a great opportunity to add some additional art. So what the art ad hoc is recommending is actually a koi tile mural. Again, this is a concept rendering of that. It would fit in the location right above the drinking fountain on the restroom. There was some thought given about carrying it all the way over to the left of the drinking fountain, over where the door is located for the restroom. But there is some signage requirements that's needed that would impact the continuity of that design. So the ad hoc took those into consideration and really felt it was better to have one cohesive piece right above that drinking fountain. So again, we would be recommending, the ad hoc would be recommending to go with the same tile muralist, Jesse Bartles. And the cost for this, because it's a little bit smaller in size, would be roughly $7,800 for this commission, for this tile art mural. And again, we could make that recommendation if so desired by the council, that it's more of a painted tile mural aesthetic as opposed to the abstract style mosaic. And that's definitely something that we can work with the artist Jesse Bartles, as well as, again, creating those renderings so the council gets a more concrete idea of what that art would look like in its final form.
Adam, I do have a question. Just in general, the colorations for these types of glazed tiles, how do they age over time? Is there, in terms of the coloration, is there significant fading over time? Is there maintenance required? Or does tile have a long shelf life in terms of the vibrancy of the colors?
The colors should, once they're set, they're pretty set. They're glazed, and the colors that are added to it really wouldn't be impacted by UV in the same way as, let's say, a painted art piece or something like that. All of the art too still would have a UV anti-graffiti coating on it anyways. Just in the event that it does get vandalized, it makes it easier to preserve and maintain the art pieces. But the color is typically very stable, especially with glazed tiling. So there wouldn't be a big concern about fading, or if anything, you would be more worried about maybe water, hard water, staining or things like that. Not so much, with the loss of color over time.
Is it very similar to the ones, the tiles that we have on Rosemead Boulevard? Because those seem to be holding up pretty well.
I would believe it's a similar process. I think most.
I believe those are glazed, right, Vince?
Right.
I think when you guys decided to put those in there, they had that same protection on them as well. And I haven't noticed any.
Yeah.
Anything wrong with it.
And these, I think, with the ad hoc too, their considerations were, these are installed in a way to protect them from the elements. So having it on these structures, there's an overhang of a roof on the restroom facility. It's bordered with, these extended walls that come out. So they're in and of itself, the structures and where they're being placed also provides additional layers of protection. You don't get the same type of traffic like you would, let's say, if it's a floor tile or something like that. So I think with all those different considerations, these should last quite a while, as long as they're not vandalized or damaged.
The ad hoc didn't consider maybe putting a big screen television up in that spot. That would be a good location for one, maybe.
That I don't think that entered into the conversation.
Yeah, probably not. I don't think that's
Yeah.
considered art, probably.
Yeah, we could run the city council meetings on repeat.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. I'm sure we have a lot of audience.
Does the council have any questions regarding this location or the selection of a koi pond design? All right. If not, then we'll go to the final location, and this was kind of a, I guess you would say, a low-hanging fruit opportunity for art. We have 3 designated bike racks for the park, and these would have been, really off-the-shelf bike racks that are standard and meets the needs for securing your bicycle. But we also had found out that there's an opportunity to customize those bike racks, and we figured, hey, this is something that we can take a look at. And in talking with our contractor, really they informed us that, hey, there's not really much of an additional cost, so that could be rolled into what they would have put in anyways for the purchase of these bike racks. So the ad hoc again came up with wanting to represent Temple City and adding a camellia flower, which also, if you didn't know, mimics the primrose pretty closely as well. So depending upon who's looking at it, they may interpret it in one of both ways that both pertain to Temple City. So again, this is a mock-up of what that would look like. The color green is what would be recommended in terms of the color. And again, these would be anchored in concrete in front of the main entrance to Primrose Park. So this would be the final location for art for the park. So does the council have any questions on this location or item?
I noticed we kind of went old school with the camellia rather than the new logo design, which I actually like. My only question is, are the camellias on the rendering that we see before is that going to be a design going to be colored, or is it just going to be white, or is it just going to be open? It's hard to tell. I can see the bike rack portion in the Primrose Park, but how is that camellia plant or flower going to be on there? What is that going to look like?
So basically what this is, it's like a steel plasma cutout. So any of the white area that you see would be cut out. So it would be like metal that's removed. Because of that, the ad hoc committee decided to go with more of the, I guess, quote unquote, traditional camellia, because its design is more easily seen in a monochromatic look and feel. The new logo really kind of needs more color contrast to be able to differentiate between the camellia flowers, which you just wouldn't be able to do with this option. So that was part of that thought process, again, to do more of the traditional camellia flower. But yes, the flower itself, we just put it in black so you can see the layout a little bit better, but that would be powder coated in that green as well. So it would all be cohesive in one color, and it would be cut out. So any white that you would see is actually cut out metal.
Okay, good. Thank you.
If I could, I'll just add one thing. It's while we're talking about art here, as you could see, the name Primrose Park is on there, and I don't know. Well, we actually have never sat down as a city council to formally name the park as Primrose Park. Well, I don't know if anybody has an issue with that, but I just want to make sure that if somebody wants to talk about that, and maybe now it's not the time because it's not agendized, but we need to think about if Primrose Park is not the right name, then we need to, discuss that.
Do we need to discuss that obviously before the custom bike wrap, right? Bike racks are
Yeah,
made?
that's really where I'm
Um,
bringing it up, so.
I mean, I think you're right. We've kind of generically referred to this as Primrose Park since day
Right.
one. I think just to identify it as something. I don't know. I mean, normally parks are, we've got Live Oak Park, which is, I don't know why it's Live Oak Park because it's not on Live Oak, but it's near Live Oak. But this obviously is on Primrose, or at least one side is, and that would make sense. Whether we want to make it something else, I guess we need to get that on the agenda maybe for final approval or whatever the timeline is. Whatever we call it, my thought is that whatever we call it now, those can always be changed if we ever decide to rename it after, somebody or something, or I mean, that's no big deal, I don't think either. So I wouldn't want to delay the whole process just for the sake
Right.
of coming up with a name. So, but yeah, I think that's a good idea, Vince. There's some discussion to have at some point in time is what
Right.
we're actually going to call this park.
How about Chavez Park?
Well, I was thinking about that,
I would
but
second.
I'm not sure that I would get more than one vote. So
Well,
let's just
I'll vote
just
for
table
that, Councilmember Chavez.
maybe we can combine all of our names into one and come up with a name for a park or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but then we'd argue about whose name goes first.
Well, that's true too. So that's
It's alphabetical order. So Chavez would probably go first.
I
I'm
think you
always
have,
at the end of the line.
I think you have to die first before they can name a park after you. I think that's an unwritten rule. So we may have to hold off on that. So.
Mayor, you.
Yeah.
There are a couple elements that we do need in order to have consistency to probably name the park a little earlier than later. So if that's something that's of kind of general direction from the council, I'd like to bring that item forward probably at the next meeting.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Right.
So that so that poor Mr. Matsumoto is not stuck at the last minute making some change orders or some other things related to some of the monuments and other things. So if I'm hearing the council correctly, we will bring that forward at your first meeting in December.
Brian, real quick, other than the bike racks, is there going to be some other name designations in the park, and where would those be? I'm assuming at the entrance somewhere, or?
Well, yes, there will be a plaque. There would be some other name designation locations, but also too, just from a general marketing and just placemaking standpoint too. So yeah, so there are some fixtures that will have the name, but also so there's that from a timing standpoint. So we don't want to have kind of swap that out if there is a name change, and also too just from a designation standpoint.
What we should have done if we had had some thought process to this a while back is maybe have a contest or have a naming thing that sometimes cities do with the community, is to, maybe, like we do with the Camellia Festival, where we pick a theme every year, a lot of different entries or something like that. But, I suppose we could make that decision now, but a little late to do something like that probably.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Yeah.
But
Well,
we don't have the time probably to do that.
Brian, I'm not sure what you're suggesting for next meeting.
Per the discussion that was just occurred, that we would come back with solidifying the name of the park from the council. If you want to stay with Primrose Park, or you want to change the name of the park, just so that it's as Mayor Yu and Councilmember Chavez discussed. It's never been formalized. It's also always been generally referred to as Primrose Park, but there hasn't been kind of the stamp of council's naming this the Primrose Park.
So we all show up next meeting with an idea for a name?
I'll be careful how far I discuss this, but maybe after we get through this, maybe that may, I don't know, Greg, can I ask for some general direction?
I think what we could probably do is get direction to come back. Council members contact the city manager or the director with any ideas you have. If the city manager or director have their own ideas, they'll add them to a list. You won't be bound by that list, but anything you have, please pass it on so that it can go in the staff report, and that way the public can see it before you guys discuss it at your first meeting in December.
Is there something significant about doing it at the first meeting in December as opposed to maybe January?
I think from a timing standpoint for Mr. Matsumoto and some of the fixture items he has to order, and so we kind of get things done in a timely manner. That's why we want to do that sooner rather than later.
There's two main locations for the signage of the park that
Does
have
the
been.
park, I'm sorry, Evan, go ahead.
Oh, just that there's two main monument signs for the park. One is at the main entrance and one is to the parking entrance. We're on hold right now in terms of placing that order for the monument signage. Ideally, if the name was finalized, those pieces would have already been ordered. So that again wouldn't delay it. We want to make sure we have all of that monument signage up once we're ready to open. So by doing it the first week of December, still hopefully gives us enough time, if it's finalized, to be able to open the park with the name desired by the council. If we wait, then we may be in a position where we have an unnamed park when we're opened, or at least not the monument sign there, because there just wasn't enough time to place that order beforehand.
Does this park touch any other streets other than Primrose? I know we've got the alley on one side, we've got the parking lot on another. What's on the north side? I think that's other properties, correct?
That's housing.
Yeah,
Residential.
housing. Yeah, so Primrose is really the only street that it actually touches. Is it?
Correct.
Yeah. I.e. Primrose Park. Okay.
Well, I think we definitely have the direction to be able to bring that back to the next council meeting, so that can be discussed. And then in terms of the art discussion and recommendations, those were all 5 locations. So as was mentioned before, in terms of the total cost and the budget that's been put aside or set aside for this is roughly $43,000. Currently, right now, we have $85,000 of unallocated art in public places funds. The council could allocate all $85,000 to this project, and that's definitely something that the council could consider. But there's also, an opportunities potentially for art locations elsewhere in the city where, I believe it was the desire of the ad hoc committee to not utilize all those funds in case that there's other projects or opportunities that may come up in the future. The request would be a total amount not to exceed $50,000. The reason why for that increase was for some of the tax and shipping costs for some of the art pieces, and potentially just making sure that we have enough allocated out beforehand in case there are any maybe slight increases between when the staff report was created and if there's any increased costs for any of these items. So that's a recommendation going forward for the city council to consider. I do have in my notes too, based off our previous conversations today, this evening, would be that one, clarifying it's one large butterfly bench in the middle with 2 medium-sized butterfly benches to the outside, adding a young boy sculpture for the bronze statues, and ensuring that if we do go with the artist Jesse Bartles for the tile murals, that we direct him to create and render more of a painted tile design as opposed to the abstract design that was also presented to the council. So those are my notes, and I'm also be able to answer any additional questions.
I think there's one other thing I think we should add for the city council as a city council report. I believe we discussed that most of our art could be installed by the time the park is open, but I believe the Koi Pond mural and then the mountain tile mural perhaps will be a little bit further out. Am I right, Director Matsumoto?
We haven't had those in-depth discussions yet to know the timeline for the creation of that art. And it's also dependent upon if it's desired by the councilors to first create a rendering before a commission is granted for that tile mural. So as of right now, we don't have a hard timeline to know if it would be able to be completed by mid-February.
Yeah, so therefore we need council's direction on whether or not it is desired to have the commission artist to prepare a final rendering or options of renderings for the council to consider before actually commission him to start the work. So that might take a little bit longer. And I think that would be a safe route in my opinion. But
I agree, Vincent.
yeah, so I think if well, we've been asking a lot of questions all along, so I don't know if there are any more questions from council, but I think we can, if there are no objection, I will open public comment so that we can move this item along. So I'll ask any members of the public watching at home to call in at the Zoom number. Once you're in, the city clerk will make sure you're able to speak. Madam City Clerk, are there any public callers offering comments on this item?
Mayor Yu, there are no public callers on the line.
Okay. Are there any email public comments?
No, sir.
Okay. Let's let the clock run, and then we'll give people a chance to call in.
Actually, while we're waiting, I do have a quick question on the Koi Pond estimated budget column. It was called mural option 1. Does that imply there were other mural options?
We again, I apologize. I needed to clean it up from our ad hoc committee. But there were different options that they were looking at for the tile mural in terms of the size. During the presentation, I mentioned that one of the options would be to carry it over to the restroom side of the structure. So that was the option 2. So option 1, which was really the main option or the only option that was presented to today's council meeting, was what was going to be recommended. So,
yeah, the ad hoc recommended against taking all the way through to the restroom door because there's a mandatory ADA sign needs to go on it. It would look like it's an afterthought. So we all agree that we recommend the first option to council. That's why it still says option 1. Okay. Well, at this time, I will close public comments, and we want to go around the city council for any final comments or questions before the motion. Councilmember Chavez, you have any other thoughts?
Thank you. No, I think I've asked all the questions. I just want to thank Director Matsumoto, his staff, and of course our ad hoc committee for all the work they've put and thoughts they put into this. It's good to see Ms. Keelan and Mr. Hepler back on board. I know they have been antsy to get back involved in the art of the community, and they were such a big part of it when we had our art commission. So it's nice to see them part of this as well. And so just thank you to everybody for putting together. I think it looks great, and I'm excited to hopefully see the final product sooner than later. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Min.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Yu. I do also want to thank the ad hoc. It's clear you spend a lot of time researching and working with also our former commissioners, Keelan and Hepler on this. So I really appreciate that. It saves a lot of time for us to have to filter through all of that information. When I saw the pictures of the bronze statue, it reminded me of some of the ones on Rosemead Boulevard and Las Tunas. I'm not sure if that was the same company, but that's the first thing I thought of, was that. So I thought
That was a different sculpture, William.
okay, but the style looked very similar.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Yeah, so I appreciate that association. I like the tile mural. I think it fits in with the theme very nicely, especially the inclusion of the parrots. My favorite actually is the koi pond. Maybe because I do find it a bit ironic that it's on the bathroom. I won't go into detail, but it's stories from family that grew up in the countryside overseas. But I think some people might find some maybe humor or irony behind that. I do. But besides that, for those that don't get it, it's a beautiful mural. So I guess it appeals to a wide range of audiences. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I agree with Mayor Yu suggesting the direction of the name of the park. Although, I mean, in my mind, that seems like more of a, I guess, perfunctory matter. I can't really imagine us really trying to scrap together a new name for this in the next 2 weeks. That's just kind of my thought for now. Obviously, we'll discuss in December. But yeah, thank you. Looking forward to the opening of the park and yeah.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Viscar.
Just so I'm clear, we're going to ask for a pre-rendering of the mural, and the koi, right, on the wall. So we're not going to approve those now.
Well, I think we're approving the concept of a tile mural, but the actual artwork we're not approving because the one that we saw is really a concept put together by, honestly, former Commissioner Keelan and Halpler,
Right.
and with some of our input, but really is not the artist's work. So I think the artist may have different opinion about it, but we want to give that as a concept to the artist and have the artist come back with actual renderings for the city council to confirm. And I think that's what we need.
And or accept.
Yeah, before, because, he might present something and we might say, I really like this other way, or, we thought that maybe one more bird, or who knows? I mean, we want to give the council a chance to consider, and also a public to comment as well.
You and I are used to working with that kind of a process, but that's why I wanted to bring it out.
Yeah.
So that people know that that isn't the final step. The final step will be approving the renderings and or having them change the renderings. Right. Now, okay, I had one other idea, and we can think about it. The name of the park, it would not be difficult to put up a temporary sign saying Primrose Park, and then go with something like what Councilmember Chavez suggested, and have some kind of a contest to name the park further down the line. And even if we did do something, it could be temporary, showing Primrose Park, but later on make it come up with a permanent name. Just an idea. So I'll throw that out there. We can consider it. And the last thing I'd like to say is the ones that did really the bulk of the work on this, besides Adam, were Kathy and Robert. And that, I talked to Robert earlier. He really put his heart and soul into this thing. So I just want to say that we appreciate it. I'm sure the whole council appreciates it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally second that. Thank you, Councilmember Viscara. You know, when we were working on this, it's really Ms. Keelan and Mr. Helpler that did most of the heavy lifting, also Director Matsumoto. I mean, to a point whereby, you know, like they were suggesting the butterfly benches. I mean, the concepts was so powerful that even the landscape architect was excited about it. And he actually, the drawings that we saw today was actually done by the landscape architect because he really bought into that whole concept of the butterfly and all the other art. So that really, I think, speak volumes as to how pervasive the art component is and how it influenced people. So, but anyway, I will echo what Councilmember Viscar was saying. You know, it's really Ms. Keelan and Mr. Helpler did a lot of the work. They actually done a lot of other options and stuff that we did not bring back, but these are the ones we thought the council would be happy about. And so, I mean, I personally like everything. Obviously, we're coming to the council tonight, and I appreciate what Councilmember Chavez and Councilmember Ment's suggestion. And as far as a naming contest, actually, I'm open to that as well. And what that only meant is that that bicycle rack may not have a name on it. I mean, the concept can still be there, the flower can still be there, and we just don't want to put in the actual name until later.
You could get a piece of metal and spot weld it on there with Primrose Park, and if we come up with another name, just take it off and put the permanent name on it.
Yeah,
you know, it's not difficult.
Or just leave it blank. I mean, obviously, they're bike racks that are meant to stay there. They're not going anywhere, and having a name on them isn't going to necessarily identify them any further. I mean, they are at the park, so whatever.
They are bike racks.
Yeah, and it does have the chameleon on there. So I think that, you know, in a way, maybe having a name on there might make it too busy. I don't know.
Yeah. So those are my comments and thoughts. And do we need a motion, or is that enough? Do we need a formal motion to move this along?
That would be helpful because we're also appropriating the funds for this activity as well. So yes, please.
Okay.
I will try to form a motion based on
thank
the
you.
discussions, if you don't mind. I would make a motion that we approve the public art recommendation concepts as presented for the 5 locations, and to allocate art in public places funds not to exceed $50,000. And that further, the art or the artist who will be retained for the murals, the tile murals, will create an artist rendering for further approval by the council at a later date. Is that I think that covers it. I kind of wanted to put in there, because I know Adam said he's been taking notes. I wanted to add your notes to it, but I guess that's a little vague. But Adam, I think, has heard, and I think we've all kind of listened, and I think he's got a good concept we're doing it.
Councilmember Chavez, you want to add your other idea of having them present the sculpture with the two kids, maybe the hand, holding
Yeah,
hands, maybe,
sure, yeah.
you want to see that as
Yeah,
well?
yeah, well, that's probably not a bad idea, since we're gonna look into that, is to also present further examples of the sculptures that'll be put in there as well.
I'll second.
So, thank you.
So it's moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes,
Councilmember Mann,
Yes.
Councilmember Viscara,
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist,
She's,
excuse me,
she abstained. Yeah,
Mayor Yu.
yeah. So, yes, so thank you. So, thank you. And again, I just want to echo everybody's sentiment. Thank you so much for Ms. Keelan and Mr. Helpler's work. It's not done yet. They still be involved in the finalizing of the concepts. So thank you. So moving on to the next item, I think Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist, you can come back to join us now. Oh, there you are. So the next item here is discussion and possible adoption of resolution to continue to allow city council meetings to be held remotely, consistent with Assembly Bill 361. Mr. City Manager or Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Yu, members of the council. Before you is the resolution you passed almost 30 days ago, allowing us to continue the option of virtual meetings. We've made similar findings to what we presented to you at our last meeting, which seemed to be holding for now. Positivity rate is still going a little bit higher in LA County. But again, the findings that we have before you are consistent with what we did at the last meeting and provide ample justification for continuing virtual meetings if that is the desire of the council. Any questions for Mr. Murphy and I? We're here for questions.
Okay, I will go around the city council for any questions. Councilmember Chavez.
thank you. So, how I should frame this now. I know that Brian Arizumi has consistently been sending us numbers and all the data information on where we are with COVID. And I did notice, of course, that the positivity rate, as stated by Mr. Cook, is still the word I think they use is substantial. Is that correct? And Mr. Cook, is that?
The CDC does the analysis countrywide for every county. And yes, we are still in substantial community transmission.
Okay, so this is something that comes from the CDC, not from the county or the state?
That's correct. It comes from the Centers of Disease Control.
Right. My only concern with these numbers, I guess, and I guess we have nothing to do with them apparently, but or can do nothing about them, is that they don't really truly reflect what's going on, not only maybe in the county of Los Angeles, but also certainly the city of Temple City. It appears that everything I've read lately is that this virus is now a virus of the unvaccinated. And I don't know that these numbers are ever going to come down to us from the standpoint that CDC, whoever has the ability to use this term, is ever going to move off substantial. And in fact, if this term and these rules come from a federal agency, I mean, there are articles in the newspaper every day of how other states and other areas are basically as bad as they ever were. And then if you look at the reasons why, their vaccination rates are below 50% in some areas. Temple Cities is almost 90%. And even higher than that with young adults. So, you know, my frustration, I guess, and I guess this is more comment than questions, is I just don't know what to make with these rules and these numbers. It just, I don't know, it just, it doesn't compute with me, and it doesn't, and if you're going to use numbers, then why not use the numbers that are relevant to your particular area in making decisions on what is best or not best? And, you know, that's just, you know, my concern with the whole thing. But, you know, I do appreciate Brian giving us those numbers, keeping us up to date. But, you know, it's very frustrating for me to see these kind of numbers and know that these numbers are generated for the most part by the unvaccinated. And I think we've reached a point in our society, at least it appears to be, that those who choose not to be vaccinated aren't going to do change in their mind anytime soon. Especially with the fact that the mandates are now being tested as well in courts. That's all I have for now. Thank you, Mayor Yu.
Well, thank you. Councilmember Min, any questions?
Thank you, Mary. Just one question that we may have touched upon the last time we discussed it, but it might be more for Mr. Murphy here. But just recently, I've been to a couple of events and gatherings that were outdoors, organized by, that they're not cities or agencies, but just groups. Yeah. And one of the things that they've asked for is proof of vaccination. So is there any case of cities or agencies that have in-person meetings that have, I guess, almost you're screening the people who want to attend in person, or is that kind of like a slippery slope to, in my mind, it just, there could be a setup where if you want to be physically inside the hall, you can be if you show you're vaccinated. If you weren't, we could create a space outside with the TV screens. I don't know. I don't know practically how that would be implemented, but from a legal standpoint, is that like a tricky, sticky issue?
Sure, and the answer is yes. The primary answer to that is yes, it is a tricky issue because the Constitution gives a right to approach and seek redress from the government. You could have a mandate for the public coming into the chamber of either proof of vaccination or proof of a recent negative test. What I have seen some entities do where they want to begin meeting in person is use 361 to open up the public seating area in their council chambers, but still at a social distance limitation, which then you allow some people into the chamber and allow the rest of the people to continue watching a Zoom meeting from home. That also gives the council the option in any given meeting to participate via Zoom from home or participate in person. Even in those circumstances, though, sir, you couldn't mandate vaccination. You would have to give the vaccination or test option because of that constitutional right for the public to approach you. But you very likely could do something like that. And if it's the will of the council, we'll drill down on that and see what other people are doing and what our rights are, and give you that information in December when you revisit this matter, if you do approve it tonight.
Okay, so if I could maybe summarize your response, it can be done if you allow for someone the option of providing a negative COVID test.
Yes, sir. I certainly believe so. I would want to confirm that if that's a route that the council wants to go down. But as of right now, I believe that that is the state of the law. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure what to make of that, but I appreciate the response.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Councilmember Viscar, any questions for staff?
Well, Not really questions, just suggestion. I'm thinking, well, for one thing, Fauci has predicted that we're entering once again a perilous part of the year where people will be gathering, the weather will be colder and less forgiving. I think maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I think we should consider when you think about what can happen between now and the first of the year, that we consider maintaining what we're doing now and then visit the idea of testing or whatever else at our first meeting in January and make a decision then as to whether or not we want to go back to in-person meetings. So that's where I'm at.
Sir, that's certainly fair. And I will say, I don't want to name the city, but I talked to an in-house city attorney of a fairly large city in our area, and they will be making their decisions for the January or February time period as well. They're still meeting by Zoom, and they're going to continue that through the end of the calendar year and then make their decisions, as you say, sir, around that time.
They must be pretty smart guys.
Do we know the vaccination rate of that city?
It is almost as high as yours.
Almost as high, but not as high.
Not as high, no, sir.
Okay. Is that it, Councilmember Viscar?
That's
Your
it.
questions? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist, any questions?
Question, Greg, is that city that you were referencing a larger city than ours?
It is a significantly larger city, and they have been, I would say, equally cautious to you and not. This particular city attorney I have a lot of respect for and has not been pushed around by much in the way of politics, but they are coming back steadily. But they do believe that for them, the right time is after the first of the year.
So their vaccination rate percentage wise, I mean, they're a larger city, so they'd have more people that would need to be vaccinated.
Correct.
At our last meeting, if you could help me recall, did we agree that we were going to use the county wording of substantial to, use that as a guideline, or did we not agree upon that? For some reason, I'm thinking we agreed that we were all just going to use that for the time being. If it was substantial, we were going to continue to go another 30 days until there was possibly a change. Was that, do you recall?
I do not. Mr. Cook, do you recall?
I remember that as being a discussion item, but nothing formalized by the council.
Okay, so it was just, maybe there were 4 of us in agreement with that, but we didn't take a vote or anything.
Not to use that as the matrix, but you by approving the resolution that had that finding, you used that as part of your findings to approve the resolution. So, but there wasn't a formalized vote on that's the matrix or that's the benchmark we're going to use going forward.
Okay, I like the idea. Well, I guess this is question, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Thank you. I don't have any particular questions, and all the questions have already been asked, so we can move on to open up public comments. So I'll ask any member of the public watching at home to call in at the Zoom number. Once you're on, the city clerk would make sure you're able to speak. Madam City Clerk, are there any public callers offering comments on this item?
Mayor Yu, there is one caller and I have requested for them to unmute.
Okay, and So caller, if you intend to address the council, please unmute your phone or your computer and address the council. While you're doing that, Madam Clerk, have you received any email comments?
Mayor Yu, there are no email comments or requests to speak from the email.
Okay. Let's wait a little bit longer. Okay, with nothing more from the public and a reasonable time having been given for them to call in, I will close public comment and bring it back to the council for discussion. At this time, we'll go around for council final questions and comments. Councilmember Chavez, anything further from you?
Thank you, Mary Yu. Just to follow up with what Mr. Cook said, you know, that in order to keep this in effect, basically what we're doing, there are certain findings that the city has to make, and those are contained in the resolution that's been presented to us tonight and has previously been presented to us. And it does specifically say that COVID continues to threaten the health and lives of Temple City residents, notwithstanding the city's vaccination rates, with Los Angeles County considered to have a substantial community transmission as of October 11th, 2021. I'm wondering why that, first of all, why did we use that date? Since that's over a month ago in tonight's resolution. Is that the most recent figures that we have to go by?
Mayor Chavez, I think that should have been dated November 8th.
Okay, so there's, all right, so there's a typo then in the resolution.
Yeah, if we could make the if the council so desires to approve this resolution tonight, if we could amend that to be inclusive of November 8th as the date.
Yeah. And, you know, frankly, I still have, I mean, I certainly expressed my feelings at the last council meeting a month ago, and nothing has changed since then to cause me to basically change my mind moving forward. As I said, it would appear that that this transmission rate is still substantial based on what CDC is saying. And that I don't see that going away anytime soon, to be honest with you, whether it be December, January, February. As Councilmember Vizcarra stated earlier, if you listen to Dr. Fauci, he's concerned for the entire winter months. It will go all the way into February and March, I would assume. You know, my only concern with this whole thing is that, as I stated before, is we really truly are missing the civic engagement that we really should be relying upon in making these decisions that affect our residents and our businesses. I mean, I can't remember the last time we had someone actually join a meeting and say something regarding an issue that was before us. I mean, it has to have been months. And I cannot believe that there aren't people out there that have an opinion one way or another on some of these decisions that we've been making. But for whatever reason, they're not joining our Zoom meetings, and whether that's going to change, I don't know. I mean, if we're going to continue doing this, maybe we can think about some kind of outreach program to let people know, hey, we're still out here, and this is how you get a hold of us. Maybe make it a little easier to do that. But you know, again, you know, that's what I miss the most, and we're just simply not getting it on these Zoom meetings. I don't know why we haven't already researched the law, as Councilmember Mann talked about, regarding looking at this from another angle. It seems like we are looking at it from the angle of, okay, why we can't have in-person meetings. But why can't we look at it from the angle of how do we have in-person meetings? For example, can we require vaccination proof? Can we require proof of a negative test? in order to, because one of the resolutions states specifically that the council chambers does not allow for social distancing if more than 19 members of the public are present. And even with protective shielding, the lack of social distancing still creates a risk of transmission should city council meetings run their normal length of time. I would have to think that those two things would be mitigated if we could somehow figure out a way to impose legal restrictions on coming into a community event. I mean, again, as an attorney, I understand these things, and it's like comparing apples with oranges, but sometimes you wonder, how can we say you can't go into a stadium of 80,000, 60,000 people without presenting proof of vaccination, yet we can't do the same thing to allow them to come into a council meeting? And I understand the constitutional issues there as well, but there has to be a way for us to accommodate those people who perhaps cannot show proof of vaccination or a recent test. I don't know, but again, that's what we pay our city attorneys to look at those things for. So I, for one, would echo what Councilmember Mann has said, and that is, if I understand correctly, is that we ask our city attorney to come back the next time and give us some indication of possibly things to consider in moving in another direction. And as far as other cities do, I've always been one to always be against that concept. Well, just because another city does it, we should be doing it, or we shouldn't be doing it. And I know there are a number of cities that have not met in live, but I can tell you a lot of cities, and I've talked to these council members, that they have been having live meetings for months and months with basically no problems whatsoever. So, again, I understand it's kind of comparing apples with oranges, but how big the city is, or what where they have their meetings certainly is relevant. But I mean, I still get back to the fact that I think our staff has done a fantastic job in setting up our council chambers for this type of event, and it just sits there empty. That's all I have, Mayor. You.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Mann, any final questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Yu. Yeah, I guess just to reiterate and also concur with Councilmember Chavez's point, I think that legal angle of proof of vaccination plus COVID testing really needs to be addressed from a legal standpoint, because if we assume that COVID continues indefinitely, right, then do we also assume that virtual meetings also continue indefinitely? Or are we looking for ways to try to make in-person meetings happen? And I guess I'm coming from the angle where I believe the accessibility part needs to be explored for residents that do want to go, and also find ways that we can encourage folks to participate who would actually prefer to participate virtually, even though we haven't seen much of it. I think the other side is COVID really has turned our world upside down in terms of what we prioritize in our daily lives. So the other angle is, well, people have other concerns than trying to tune into our city council meetings, right? Even before COVID, we all knew what our average attendance was, notwithstanding issues that brought out more people with a lot of opinions that they wanted to voice and share with us. So I really want us to explore ways that we can mitigate even further, if that's really the concern. Like I've seen the retrofits and the enhancements that staff has done. They're fantastic. But as you know, Mr. Cook and I have talked about, you know, a lot of the information coming out about the Delta variant and transmission has to do with air circulation. You know, how quickly can you replenish an enclosed space with fresh air and not keep it stagnant? And I know it's hard with the space that we have, but you know, I know we have a door that leads right to the outside at the back of the council chambers. Can't remember if that's considered an emergency exit that we can't keep open, or are there issues with allowing fresh air in? And technically, if you open the side door to where we used to have closed sessions in the back bathroom, there's another door that leads out. So there's kind of, I don't know, maybe you have a giant fan or something to move the air. I know we have the indoor air purifiers that are in place already, but is there something additionally that we can do to kind of give not just us peace of mind, because we're the ones sitting in there longest, but also for anyone that wishes to participate in person? But at the end of the day, I still really think that the vaccination and the negative testing, that's key to unlocking accessibility. Because like all the data science shows that it's really vaccination is the key to preventing hospitalization and death. That's what all the data is pointing to right now. Now, having said that, I think Councilmember Viscara brought up a really good point earlier. Is, you know, we're entering the winter months, which we all know is peak flu transmission and all sorts of transmission. Me personally, I always get sick in the winter. I'm talking about pre-COVID. And ironically, after COVID, I now don't get sick in the winter. So, I mean, I associate that with the fact that I just don't run into an encounter and meet people on a daily basis at work or in just my daily life. So I think this whole idea of doing virtual meetings, I understand why that's been so beneficial from a public health standpoint. So I'm kind of stuck in a weird place where I really want the old way of meetings to come back. But there's a lot of data and science that's kind of telling us, hey, you might want to wait till January or something. And speaking just from a personal perspective, I know Mayor Yu knows this as well. We both work for the county. We've been ordered to return back to the office, but not until January of 2022. Although that's not an apples to apples comparison, it's still kind of the underlying reasons behind the motivation for doing so has something to do with the direction coming from the public health officials, both not just the CDC withstanding, but also LA County public health. So as at this point, yeah, I would support the current resolution, but I would only support it with sort of the additional things that both Councilmember Chavez and I have asked that we clarify. I've said before in the other meetings is, if we're not using metrics, then what is sort of the plan for reopening, and how do we evaluate it beyond simply talking about it in subjective terms? So when we have these active measures in place, it's like, well, can we do more? Can we do more? Where is, you know, let's be as safe as we possible in an in-person environment. What does that look like, right? I mean, part of me wants to go even far as saying, well, is there some infrastructure modifications we could do to the physical walls of City Hall that introduces some ventilation system? I don't know. Maybe that's part of all the infrastructure upgrades we're talking about in our budget and planning sessions. Because to me, that scenario of if COVID really is here to stay for the long term, maybe that's the type of infrastructure investment we really need to start thinking about. But it's, yeah, I think we really need to look into that. So that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Viscara, any final thoughts?
No, I don't have anything further. I
Okay.
think I made my views clear.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Stenquist. You are on mute.
I think looking at some further mitigation would be the way to go. I think I would feel comfortable going back to our in-person meetings if we strictly did the business of the city, where we eliminated any of the, presentations that could be done virtually, or sending certificates out instead of inviting all the people, whether it's an art award winning, group of students for the library bookmarks, or the Boy Scouts coming to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I think there's some things that are simple that can be mitigated that just eliminate the amount of people that are coming to our meetings, and we strictly do the meetings and maybe save the presentations for, go ahead and acknowledge what we would do for presentations, but then maybe at a later date, maybe February or March, if we ever get out of this substantial designation with LA County, that then we do a couple of larger meetings where we have the presentations in person. But I think that's what makes me most comfortable. I don't think we've ever had more than 10 people at a council meeting since I've been on council, unless there was something that was really controversial or there were presentations that were going to be given. To come to the council meeting and have, maybe we have to work on the agendas where we don't have a lot on one evening, where it's going to be a 2 or 3 hour meeting. Maybe we eliminate public comment at the end of our meetings, because you have the ability to comment publicly on every item as we go throughout our meeting. So I think there's a lot we can do with mitigating just the amount of time that our council meetings, take to complete. I think maybe if we start putting a timer on ourselves as council members to not talk as much as we do, and, basically, ask the questions ahead of time for our staff. I mean, I try to do that all the time. And, so I think there are ways to mitigate, to have shorter meetings so that we are in the meeting, we do the business of the city, and we are out of the meeting. Anyone who wants to, come up and talk to us, the mayor can make a comment and say, at the end of the meeting, the council members are leaving. If you choose to be a council member who wants to stay and communicate with people, that's fine. I think with COVID, my most comfortable way of dealing with that is saying, please, here's my phone number, call me, here's my email address, I will call you. We can have this conversation through telephone, or I can, whatever that may be. So I think there are ways to mitigate if we just are determined enough to do so. So I think maybe we can send our ideas to you, Mayor, and then you can forward them to Brian, and I can definitely list what I'm comfortable with as far as going back to a meeting. And I think if, we all have similar things that we send to you, then we can move forward with the plan. But I think right now, we don't have that plan. So I think that I would be in favor of recommending the resolution for, is it another 2 weeks or is it 30 days? I forget.
30 days from the adoption of the resolution tonight, Mayor Pro
So
Tem.
another 30 days. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I too agree with everything that's been said. Actually, I don't think the council members are different in their opinions. And it's really a question of when do we actually do come back. So on one end of the spectrum, we're conserve health and safety of all, not just us, but all the attendees as well. And on the other hand, there's a way to try to maybe mitigate some of the impact, and then we should come back. I like a lot of the suggestions that's been said, like maybe reduce some of the unnecessary presentation. Well, I shouldn't say unnecessary, reduce the amount of people for presentations. Like when we go to the doctor's office, they don't let people in, they limit the number. So there might be certain things that that we can take into consideration. And I do agree, we do need to come back together at some point. And I also agree with Councilmember Vizcarra's point, and as Councilmember also pointed out, most of the large organizations are deferring the indoor gathering of large groups until the first of the year. I think everybody with their consultant or advisor are really trying to watch what this winter will bring us. So I think it would be prudent for us to try to protect not just ourselves, but protect city staff, but protect the public joining our meetings, to perhaps wait until the first of the year. But in the meantime, I certainly agree with a lot of the suggestions that have been made. As far as Councilman Min, I thought of, we'll just bundle up in the winter, and let the wind blow through the council chamber. Maybe that's, that is certainly one way to deal with that. So I am actually in agreement everything that's been said tonight. If we were to, however, having certain person able to be in the council chamber and certain people will be outside the council chamber, while I'm a little concerned about, the appearance of somebody may have more influence on the council because they're in our face, and folks that not be able to come in may not have the same impact. I'm just a little concerned about that personally. So with that, I think I'm ready for a council motion.
Did I miss public comments?
Oh, yeah, I was actually asking during the public comment if anybody would like to comment. Actually, I closed public comment. I think, Mr. City Attorney, can we reopen that up?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's up to you. If you'd like to, I have no problem with it, sir.
Yeah. So, Mr. Caller, please state your name and address, and please address the council.
Hi, Council. I'm Ross Lewis. I live at 4839 Arden Drive.
Yeah.
I like the discussion. I thought maybe I'd give a different perspective. I don't see why we can't just let people attend if they want to. If someone's worried about COVID, they can always join on Zoom, so you could have both options. I would like it if chat wasn't disabled for the live stream on YouTube. Maybe that's something you could do. So again, to give the other perspective, I've read reports that the vaccine's only about 35% effective right now. Maybe it was in the 90s when it first came out, but with the new variants, it seems really ineffective, I guess you could say. It seems kind of like a public health placebo at this point. We keep asking for vaccine status, but it doesn't seem, if it's that ineffective, it doesn't seem like it would do that much. So like personally, I'm not worried about COVID, but I get that a lot of people are worried about COVID. It's been around for about 2 years. We have good treatments now. I think it's time to stop being afraid of it. The death rate was high 2 years ago, but it's much less harmful now. We're treating COVID like it's the Black Plague, but it's specifically dangerous to overweight people and maybe elderly. And I don't see why we have to cater to those groups and those groups only when other groups may feel differently. But yeah, someone mentioned that COVID is now essentially an endemic, that we're going to have to live with it forever. So if we kind of have the idea that COVID is like, if we treat COVID how we treat the flu now, I think maybe we'll have a different perspective. But yeah, to the point that you're saying vaccine stops spread and death, but if the vaccine works, then who are we protecting? If people don't want to get vaccinated, let them take the risk of attending a meeting. But if you are vaccinated, what are you worried about? Like if you're vaccinated and you're worried about attending the meeting, then you know what I mean? Like why get the vaccine if after you get the vaccine you're still worried about attending the meeting? So I don't know if people are unvaccinated or vaccinated and they're comfortable with attending the meetings, then I don't see what the problem is. And I don't know why people who are vaccinated are worried about attending the meeting. Hopefully you get what I mean.
Mayor,
That's all.
Yeah, thank you for your comment.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem, yes.
I just wanted to ask Greg, the gentleman on the line shared something about he was wishing that we could enable chat. I believe there is, I know at the sanitation district and SCAG, they specifically asked everybody to turn off chat. Something about the Brown Act. Have you had any discussions regarding that?
I have seen discussions regarding that going back, almost a year and a half now. It was viewed as a way to have side conversations. And so the idea was that the people running the meeting, the host of the meeting, would turn it off. Chat lets people talk to each other individually, as well as letting people either have it up on the side of their screen or not. And so, yeah, having the potential for private conversations during the middle of a meeting was viewed as a bad idea. So we've kept it off for that reason.
Thank you, Greg.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I don't think there are any more callers, so I'll close public comment again. So unless any council members would like to make any further comments, I am ready for council motion.
Did you want to do one, Cindy?
No, go ahead. I was just going to say I don't have the resolution in front of me. So if you have it there, go ahead.
I don't have it in front of me, but I think we left it at we're authorized to extend virtual meetings for another 30 days. And I would propose that we do that.
Yeah, and adopt resolution 215567.
Second.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, it's moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Chavez,
No.
Councilmember Mann,
Yes.
Councilmember Viscara,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist,
Yes.
Mayor Yu.
Yes. So the motion carried. So moving on to the next item, which is new business. Community Development Block Grant Program discussion. So staff is seeking feedback from the City Council on a new program it might want to explore for next fiscal year. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Yu and members of the council. Mr. Gulick will go over this item, but just generally, we usually come to you with the community block grant discussion or the item in right around the public hearing time. So that would be January, February, right before we need to adopt. This year, we just wanted to bring this forward to you a little bit earlier. Your staff report kind of spells out some of what I would call the constraints and challenges of the CDBG block program. And that's why we suggest to you today to just consider for direction for our next adoption in the early part of 2022 to continue with the programs we've had so far. And some of the key reasons for that is, one, this coupled with the PLHA funding that the council approved for housing rehab projects for ADA purposes for low-income households. This program is really the program right now that we have in order to meet a key element of a key component of our housing element, which is restoring and keeping our housing stock as affordable for those who want to retire and age in place. Those types of program, that type of effort, these programs really meet that effort, and it's the only kind of funding source we have for that. But we did want to provide you with an overview of what programs we've done, what programs we have, and if there's any other discussion that you would like to, or in a direction you'd like to give us before we come back to you in early 2022 with the normal adoption and public hearings that we have for the community development block grant program. And with that, Mr. Gulick will, Mary, if it's okay, Mr. Gulick will go over a brief presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Gulick.
Good evening. Thank you, council members, members of the audience. So the CDBG program has certain eligible activities, and those activities must meet one of the national objectives. So we have on here examples of those objectives. The L/M stands for low moderate income or low moderate. So if there's a census tract that qualifies, or if you're serving a low moderate income clientele, like our housing program or housing rehab program and the youth scholarship program, that's the national objective that is used for that one. Low income housing or low moderate income for housing, and to address creating jobs for low moderate income individuals, which we did as part of the COVID programs that we did last year. You could also use funds to address slum and blighted areas, spot blight, and then urgent needs. These are the typical programs that the city uses the CDBG funds on, which is the Housing Rehabilitation Program, which offers grants and loans to low-income households. As part of that, we're required to do asbestos and/or lead-based paint testing, depends on the type of work that's being done. And then also we offer a youth scholarship program, which is one of our public service programs. So this is an example, or these are some of the one-time projects that we've used our CDBG funds on. Last year, we did the temporary rental assistance program. We used part of the CARES Act funds and then our regular CDBG funds to fund that, as well as the small business grant program. We've done in the past, we've done ADA access ramp and sidewalk repairs throughout the city. We looked with our city engineer and identified some locations where the ramps were out of compliance with ADA standards. They weren't located at the corner, and individuals would need to go out into the street, which caused a dangerous situation there. We also did the Temple City Boulevard and city parking lot improvements. Those were along Temple City Boulevard, north and south of Las Tunas Drive, and then also our city parking lots located behind the businesses. I believe in around 2003 or 2004, the city used CDBG funds to replace or install new ADA library doors at the Temple City Library. And then I believe in the mid-1990s, the city used CDBG funds to resurface the playground area. Staff did look at some other cities, participating cities with the LA County, LACDA. These are some programs that cities offer that are kind of similar to our city as far as size or the amount of CDBG funds that they receive. Some cities do code enforcement programs, so part of their census tracts that qualify as being a low moderate income census tract, they have a program set up where they identify and address certain properties that have code enforcement issues. Some cities provide a senior services program that provide various services. That would be part of the public service program, which is limited to 15% of the annual allocation. And then some do a temporary rental assistance program as well as economic development assistance program. Some of the challenges with Temple City, our annual allocation for the CDBG program is approximately 200,000. And this is based on the funding is based, CDBG funds are based on population, people living in poverty, as well as overcrowded housing. So there's certain formulas that LACDA uses to determine the amount that we receive through them. The housing rehabilitation program, that is a major component of the city's housing element. If the city or a council were to want to pursue another program, we would need an alternative funding source since that program is identified in our housing element. If we're not providing that service, we could be found to be out of compliance with through the state. Our youth scholarship program, as I mentioned previously, it's 15% of the city's annual allocation. So we have approximately 30,000 the past couple of years. So if the city council were to want to do a different type of program, such as a senior services program, we would need to look at another alternative funding source for that. If we do a new program or project that would require a learning curve, we would need to establish program guidelines that's required through LACDA. We kind of went through that with the COVID programs. And then there could be the need for additional funding resources to ensure that we're in compliance with our programs. Our programs right now have been in place for a while, and there haven't been any issues recently. And staff's recommendation would be to continue the existing programs for those various reasons. But if this council is interested in exploring a new program or changing the priorities of the CDBG program, we could certainly explore that and bring that back at a future date. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Gullick. At this time, do we have any questions for staff? I will start with Councilmember Chavez. Any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Min, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Vizcarra, any questions?
You're on mute, sir.
Sorry, no questions. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any questions for staff?
I do. Thank you.
Sorry, I have a bad connection. You said no questions?
No questions.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that. I don't have any questions either, and really appreciate the presentation. So at this time, I'd like to open up for public comments. It is time for the public watching at home to call us at the Zoom number. And Madam Clerk, are there any public callers offering comments?
Mayor, there's one caller on the line and his audio is muted. I mean, unmuted, excuse me.
Okay.
Stay.
So if you want to call, if you want to address the city council, please do so at this time. And while we're waiting for him or her, Madam Clerk, do we have any email comments?
Mayor, there are no email public requests to speak or email comments.
Okay. So we'll wait a little bit longer. Well, with nothing more from the public and reasonable time have been given for them to call in, I will now close public comment and come back to City Council for final comments or questions, starting with Councilmember Chavez. Any comments?
Thank you, Mary Yu. Not really, given the limited funds that we have available to the city with these CDBG funds and then the limited applications that we can use it on, I don't see that how we can really significantly change what we're doing now. Seems to be working. I was just a real quick comment. I was very surprised and dismayed at the list of projects that are deemed not applicable, because as attachment B, if I understand it correctly, those are the things that we apparently cannot use the money for, which whoever made this list up sure did a lot of thinking. You would think that they would have tried to come up with ways that you could use the money for, rather than the hundreds of ways you cannot use it for. But I guess that was the type of thinking that went into these funds. But it's a little disappointing, but I think we're making, at least so far, pretty good use of the funds as is. So that's it for me. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Chavez. Councilmember Min, any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mary Yu. I also noticed that part in the staff report that Councilmember Chavez alluded to. Although I came to the same conclusion, but I think it was intended to say that it can be used for those programs, but it's not applicable specific to us for logistical.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, those are programs or projects or programs that the city could use the funds for, but we thought that they most of those were not applicable to the city.
Okay.
Wait. So wait a minute. So attachment B are things that we can use our monies for?
Correct.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Well, then why aren't we looking at some of these things? Tree planting, I don't know, looks like there's some homeless issues that we can deal with.
So
I didn't
staff
see
didn't
any of
think
those on the list.
Staff didn't think that those were, I mean, given the small amounts of funds that we have, for instance, the tree planting, those would need to be in a specific low, moderate income census tract. So we'd be limited to where we could plant trees.
Okay, so I'm sorry to interrupt you, William, but I'm glad you brought it up. So this list on attachment B are things that the money, CDBG monies can be used for, but we can't use them in Temple City. Why?
You can only use them, sir, in the areas that are deemed low to bottom. So that census tract you see on the map.
Where was that stated in our report anywhere? Was that? Was that even, I did not see that. Is that somewhere in the report that says that?
Yes, on page 4 of 5, it says under the heading projects deemed not applicable. Okay. It states that Appendix B is being attached to provide you a list of everything that can be funded. But for a number of reasons, we didn't believe that these would be applicable given our judgment. But what we're looking for from you tonight is to let us know,
I understand.
Is there anything in Appendix B you want us to discover, look into, and come back to you on to get you more information about?
Well, okay, so staff decided that they weren't applicable, but isn't that our decision to make?
Well, that's why we're coming to you and asking for your input. Do you want us to look at any more of these in further depth? Do you want more information on any of them?
So attachment B should really read CDBG projects deemed not applicable by staff, not CDBG projects not applicable by CDBG. Correct? I don't understand the terminology that is being used on these headings. It's a little confusing.
I'm sorry the heading wasn't clear. I think on page 4 we tried to provide more information about what Appendix B was about.
Okay, so all it says on page 4, attached as Appendix B, is a list of programs that can be funded through Cdbg funds. So I saw that and I called Mr. Cook because I was confused by that statement versus Appendix B entitled Cdbg projects deemed not applicable. It seems to not be consistent, but I guess now I understand that really what that means is Cdbg projects deemed not applicable by staff for whatever reason that may be. But I guess the main reason is that most of these things listed on attachment B can only be used in low to medium income areas. Is that correct?
That's partly correct.
What are the other reasons why we couldn't use them?
Well, for instance, in the staff report, we note that there are some, in the list is historic preservation programs. And presently, that's not an objective of the city to institute an historic preservation program. We also note that some of these programs would require more than $200,000 to fund. And since our funding is less than 200,000, that project would not be feasible.
So it would be correct to say that our task as a council member is to go through this list on attachment B, say to ourselves, hey, this sounds pretty good. Go back to staff and say, well, what about this? And then staff will then tell us why we can or cannot use funds for that. Is that what we're doing here tonight?
Yes, if there's anything in attachment B that you want more information on, then we can work with LACDA and get some additional information on how those projects could be rolled out, how other cities have used them, what the funding capacity would be in order to implement that program. We can come back with that.
Okay. That may, I mean, for me personally, it might be a little difficult. I don't know enough about all these programs to really say, well, what is this program or what can it do for the city? For example, one says relocation. Relocation of what? And to where? I mean, is that a question that we would then have to bring up to staff, and then we would be, and is that going to be done individually to each of the council members? Or are we going to get this report back at another meeting as to what individual council members have requested we look into? How is that going to be handled, Mr. Cook?
Sure. If based on the discussion I'm hearing thus far, if this is an item you'd like to continue to take a little bit more time, this is what we brought this forward to prompt a discussion related to Cdbg programming. If you'd like to take a little bit more time with that, I'm happy to do that. We have the time. We're constrained in terms of the public hearing notices that we have to do in early 2022 related to the Cdbg program, but we can come back to you and if you'd like some more detail with some of those programs. But I think the larger constraint really truly is that for the vast majority of those programs, they are defined by use within that one census tract area that we have. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we have as a city. So we could go through a very exhaustive list and an exhaustive discussion regarding that. And that's at your discretion. You decide how to use those funds and the manner in which to use those funds. We brought to you in a very, very condensed format, but a condensed format in order to, at least present to you some of the ideas that are out there where other CDBG programs, others uses of CDBG programs are applicable, but thought that our just general sense was, my general sense was that the existing programs are what are working, and the expiration of these other programs may be something that you want to look at, but at least for right now and getting through this next cycle of CDBG programs, that the existing programs would be something that the council would want to continue with. But if there's some things you want to ask us to look at further, we're happy to do that.
Are we expected to do that tonight, or we just do that?
I
What's
would,
the
I would,
timeline?
I would not press you to do that tonight. I would bring that forward at the next, at a future council meeting, maybe the
Well, what's
second
the-
meeting in
what's-
December.
What's the timeline that you need from us as far as, let's say, for example, I say, well, I'd like to have some more information on how we can use this for parking facilities.
What we could do maybe as an idea is, we will be having a special meeting on the ARPA funding. What we could do is maybe couple this with the special, with the discussion on the ARPA funding potentially.
We're
and give
having a
little bit
special meeting on what?
on the federal funding that we got from the CARES Act, the 8.4 plus million that we'll be getting over the next 2 years. We could provide that as a discussion item as well for a future special meeting.
When's that meeting?
We haven't scheduled that yet, but we're looking for sometime in December before the Christmas holiday.
Brian,
Yes, ma'am.
since I know the CDBG funding has continued to decline since I've been on council. I recall that at one time we had over $400,000 allocated to us, but it seems like going over any list doesn't really make a lot of sense if the programs that we have are what we want. So I think it would be prudent to first of all see if everyone is comfortable with the current programs, because I am, and I think that pretty much takes us to that $200,000.
Okay.
Right? I don't think there's much left over from, I think we expend all that $200,000 for the programs we currently have. Is that correct?
Yes, and that
Yes.
was kind of our thought, overall, was that there is that kind of limited amount of funding. And, if you look at the end of page 4 as well in the staff report, that's kind of it, as Mr. Reimers pointed out, that was kind of our general thought process. as
Right.
well.
So it seems to make more sense, if you will, if just for a matter of time is anybody uncomfortable with the programs that we currently have? And if somebody would like to do something separate from those, then we could take a look at that list.
That's also an approach to take, Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm just throwing that.
Well, I'm not uncomfortable with what we're doing with our money at all. But then when I'm given a list with at least 50 to 60 other things that we could possibly use this money on, how do I make a intelligent, informed decision on maybe there's a better way of using our money without knowing more about these specific programs and whether we can use them or not? It sounds to me, based on what I've heard from staff, is that basically none of these things on attachment B are going to fit into our city for whatever reason. And that's, for whatever reason, it was given to us that way. And I hate to say it, but it's kind of like a tease. Okay, well, these are the things that are out there, but you can't do them. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
And I agree with you. I think the fact is that every year we've discussed the CDBG funds and probably haven't had that open-ended list provided to us in the past. So yes, it's like, oh wow, here's this list, we can do something with it, something else. But I think over the years we've agreed that we get the most bang for our buck using it for what we currently are. So maybe it would be best to go with what we have for now and look at this list and get information back for next year. And then we can get a really good idea of all the other things that are available to us.
Okay. Councilmember Mann, are you, do you have further questions?
Sorry, William, we kind of monopolized your, you brought up a good point. That's why I thought I'd follow up, but I apologize for interrupting you.
Oh, no. Those are good comments.
Yeah, not a problem.
Good questions.
While everyone was discussing it, I was reframing my comments because I think the part that I may have missed was I think, Adam, you mentioned that a lot of these programs would be restricted to the census tract listed in the map in attachment A. Is that true for all the programs in attachment B, or is it specific to certain ones related to housing, I guess? Or is there a category of projects that are restricted to that census tract?
It would go back to the national objectives. So either it would be limited by the census tract where you could do a project, whether it's constructing a facility or doing street improvements, or it would be the clients that are being served, like our youth scholarship program and housing rehab program. Those are limited to low moderate income households.
Okay, so essentially our current programs that we have in place is actually limited to that specific part of Temple City only. Is that correct?
No, it's citywide. But the people that are assisted through the program can't exceed the income limits.
Oh, I see. So the census tract was just giving us a broad general idea of where they may reside, I guess. But it depends on the actual household, right? You're saying you go to the
correct. Okay, so the census tract, you have to have more than 51% of the census tract needs to be low moderate income in order for it to be eligible to do some type of, whether it's construct a facility. I think one of the examples that they gave was like if there's a grocery store, that you could expand the grocery store to provide a benefit for that census tract.
Okay. All right. Yeah. In that context, I think the only one on that list that piques my interest, but I really don't know if it's even applicable. There's this one bullet that says privately owned utilities. And when I read that, I thought of aging sewer laterals from residences, and along the lines of rehabilitation of low medium income housing, that type of utility replacement or repair is pretty costly. And so, but I don't know if that's really the definition of privately owned utilities. Is that would be my question, is would that be something a resident can apply for and say, well, I got a busted sewer line or something, or my sewer line's about to go and I need help paying for the replacement of that lateral?
I'm not sure about that. We'd probably need to talk to our program manager and do more research about that.
Councilman Mann, I think it's worth looking into, as Mr. Gulick said, to see if we could extend it out that far. I believe, although I'm not positive, that the purpose of that is for things like mutual water companies that are the sort of old remnant utilities suppliers. Oftentimes those are in semi-rural areas. Those mutuals have equipment that's falling down, and this is a way to help serve the people in those semi-rural, kind of more impoverished areas. I don't know that for sure, but I have seen CDBG funds applied to those types of projects. but certainly worth us taking a look and Mr. Golick getting back to you on that. Thank you, sir.
And not to drill down too much farther, but with my experience in the southeast Los Angeles County area where there are those mutuals, if I remember correctly, there were some cities that utilized that type of program for that. So that makes at least some. We'll look into it further, Councilmember Mann, but that jars some of my memory from my years in the southeast.
Okay, yeah, if that's the case, then don't waste too much staff time looking into it. I was just, if there was something on the list that was more or less aligned with some of the existing programs that we had, that I personally didn't know was something we could do, or maybe residents don't know that, oh, I can actually apply for this grant or fund to fix something other than what we thought traditionally was possible. So yeah, but besides that, I think the program that we have right now is great. I have no problems with the way the money is being allocated and the way our programs run. It seems like we have a healthy backlog of people waiting in line to do it anyway. So any money we're taken away from that to try to create like a brand new program, I could totally see how that it starts breaking down, where it's like, okay, there's just not enough to go around. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Viscar, any final thoughts?
No, no, I don't have any more questions on this. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist. Do you have any final comments?
Just that I would like to keep the programs in place that we have. And the next time this comes back to us and there's a list attached, we can have some more explanation about each of the items on the list and how they would either be, productive in our city, or let's not waste our time even looking at them. So maybe that can happen for next year when we talk about CDBG funds again.
All right, thank you. I too agree that, while the CDBG funds are great, but it's diminished to a point where I think the current program is really using it optimally. And I appreciate staff bringing back the different uses they can do, but it's almost analogous. I agree with Councilmember Chap. It's almost like a tease. Yeah, look at all these great things that you can do with it, but you cannot have it because your funds is so limited. So I'm actually okay with the current program. So if this, I appreciate bringing this to our attention earlier. And thank you, Mr. Reimers and Mr. Golick. And so at least for me, I think bringing this back and continuing with the current program, I think I'll be happy with it. So, so with that, I'm not sure we need a motion for this. This is just more for discussion purposes, right, Mr. Cook?
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you, Mayor Yu. That's there's no need for a motion, but we do kind of get a sentiment of the council and kind of next steps afterwards.
Okay. So
Better receive and file.
Not even that. Council members for SCAR not even need to be a receive and file either, sir.
So we can move on to the next item then.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. So next item is update from the city manager, Mr. Cook. You have any updates for us?
Thank you, Mayor Yu. Considering the evening, I'd just like to wish all of you and staff, many of who are here, a happy Thanksgiving to my colleague, our city attorney, Greg Murphy. This has been a crazy 18 months. And I'm grateful to all of you on the council for your continued leadership and care and compassion that you've shown getting through this. To my colleague, Mr. Murphy, thank you for your guidance. And none of this could be done, getting through all of this in COVID, without many of the names, all the names you see here, the executive team, the management team, all of the staff, as we've transitioned as well. So I'm just grateful to all of you, and grateful to work in a city that cares so much about their employees, cares so much about each other to get through this time together and still provide the service that we have been providing for the last, and in fact, in so many ways have improved our service over the last 18 months, from plan checking to the innovations that the planning department is, Parks and Recreation department has done, to our internal services as well. That's, that's usually for us to work together. But I think as a unit, we're working so much well. We're working even better than we were before. So I'm grateful to all of you. I'm grateful to the council, to the city staff, and our contractors as well. So thank you, and have a happy Thanksgiving, sir.
All right, thank you. Updates from Mr. City Attorney, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick one for the council. We updated staff late last week or early this week on Assembly Bill 602. And what that did, it changed some of the technical requirements for updating development impact fees. So the next time you see development impact fees coming to you, you'll notice some changes. Things like in multifamily dwellings, it changes the way that they're going to try to, or changes the way that we will be able to apply fees to those units. And they're trying to do it essentially to continue to push multifamily dwellings as an alternative. It also, though, changes them for a variety of other aspects of development impact fees. One thing that you may notice fairly quickly as of January 1, when projects are finished, the city has to ask the developer how much in development impact fees they paid. And then the city has to post that on their website. And the reason you have to ask is sometimes the developer has to pay to the county or special districts or to the school district. So you'll begin seeing that on the website at some point after January 1 as projects start coming online. That's my only legal update for today. We may, just kind of foreshadowing, we may have to have a very short closed session at your meeting in December to talk about a brief legal matter. Won't take more than 15 minutes, but we may have to do that in December. Other than that, as Mr. Cook said, happy Thanksgiving to all, and we'll see you in December. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next item is council reports regarding ad hoc or standing committee meetings. Do we have any reports? Councilmember Min.
Yes, Mayor Yu, I'd like to report out on the Facilities, Public Works, Infrastructure Standing Committee that Mayor Yu and I are part of. We had a meeting with our city engineers, TransTech, Mr. Ali Khair and Okan Bimersi. They gave us a quick update on our pavement management program, looking at the work that we as a city have done in the last 5 to 6 years. And also they discussed the upcoming pavement projects that are part of the current fiscal year already budgeted program, to look at how that connects with the rest of our network. Why we thought that was important was because looking at the progress has a lot of policy implications for future council direction in terms of how we really want to address the deferred maintenance aspect of how we keep and maintain our road network, and also how we tackle different segments of our residential neighborhoods that I'm sure all of us have received complaints from residents saying, well, why haven't you fixed my street yet? And so all this updated information is needed to kind of understand, well, how much are we really short on an annual basis, and how, one, are we going to do something from a policy standpoint to address it? Our last pavement management program that we did back in 2018 really looked at it from the standpoint of, well, you need X amount of dollars per parcel or property in order to generate enough revenue to maintain your roads at a certain condition. So we, COVID kind of, we lost a bit of momentum in that discussion when COVID hit. We were doing a lot of work leading up to it. And so I think we're trying to bring that back to council to see, hey, here's what we've done, here's what the future holds, and here are some of the things that we need to think about as a council. So Mayor Yu, did you want to maybe add on top of that?
No, I think you summarized it very well. I think where I'm coming in is really to echo what you said, and because what we've been doing, while it's been great, we have touched on, basically done all the low-hanging fruits in the last 5-6 years. And then it's to a point where even the initial low-hanging fruits, like the slurry sealing, all that, those roads are almost ready to be re-slurry again. And the overall pavement index has been slowly decreasing. That's why Councilmember Mann and I, when we met as an ad hoc, we asked staff to look into perhaps bring back to the council for consideration some of the other financing options, because you can really push this out so far, but eventually the pavement is going to deteriorate to a point where it really need a lot of money. So we just feel that it's better to address it at an earlier stage when it is most economical. So we will be bringing this item back to council for consideration.
Vince, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
About a month ago, they were out on my street doing borings. And so I went out and talked to the guys doing it. There was, I don't think there was an engineer there, but there were just the people that do it. They were checking the, I guess, the condition of the street. But is that part of the overall plan to just keep track of deterioration as it's occurring?
Councilmember Mann, you can explain better than I do. Actually, we did talk about that in the ad hoc meeting. You wanted to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Councilmember Viscara, that's part of the work and due diligence work that TransTech has done, because, I mean, let's be honest, our road network and our city is not exactly new. So there are certain segments of the city where you need to understand what's exactly there before you can come up with a fix. Some areas, the pavement's really thin, and in other areas, they have certain underlying features during when it was first constructed that make it difficult for certain types of reconstruction or rehabilitation work. And if you don't identify those, then you don't want to find out during construction when that happens. You'd rather know it up front now. And so that's part of TransTech's due diligence to make sure that the project that they're proposing for us, that these segments, that they make sense, that this type of treatment, this type of construction is applicable.
It's like an inventory of conditions.
Yeah, it's an inventory and a verification process.
Yeah. If I may just add to that, so the next big step is for them to look at all the financing and options that we may have, and also coming back to the city council to adopt the design plans before they go out to for bidding. So there'll be the city manager is going to bring this back to the council for consideration.
Thank you.
Any other ad hoc reports? Seeing none, I'm moving on to the next item, which is council items separate from the city manager's regular agenda, starting with Councilmember Chavez.
Just a reminder, I don't know if I should bring this up, but it's a 10-year anniversary of our windstorms. I don't know if you all remember our windstorms. It's been 10 years since our windstorms. It's hard to believe it's been that long. just to give a shout out to Jerry Jambazian. You can, if you want to take a trip down memory lane, you can look at his photos of what was going on in our city 10 years ago. So he's got that up on his website. So it was an interesting time, to say the least. A lot has gone on since then, but it's hard to believe it's been 10 years. So,
Can I add on to that, Tom?
of course.
We never did get the 218 trees that they had, or 2,000, I think it was, trees that they promised us
Yeah,
from
probably,
the Edison
yeah.
Company.
Yeah, I don't think we did. I don't think we did, but we lost a lot of them. So anyway, that and just a a good shout out to our Parks and Rec department for the programming they've been doing the last month, trying to get our city back to somewhat of a normalcy, starting with the Halloween event, the car show, and of course all the work that was put into the Veterans Day celebration. So thank you for doing all of that. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Mann, any special items?
Oh, just quickly, I too want to thank our Parks and Rec department for the Veterans Day celebration, and also thanks for all the veterans who showed up. And I always appreciate the keynote speaker, because everyone brings a really unique story and perspective, and it just goes to show you how diverse that experience is, and how all those perspectives really come together. It's always educational for me, and then also there is a bit of a emotional aspect to hearing what others have personally gone through in service of our nation. So I appreciate that. And just on a lighter note, just want to wish happy Thanksgiving. It's just right around the corner. That's all.
Thank you, Councilmember Viscar. You.
I would echo what Councilmember Mann said about the Veterans Day celebration. It's a shame we couldn't have had more people there, but nevertheless, it was conducted well, and I think we put on a pretty good program. And I thank everybody who participated. And then one other thing, are any of you having your light poles replaced? They're replacing all of the light standards on my street. It is
not on my street.
It's pitch black out here because all the lights are out.
Hopefully soon Edison and their contractors will be done with that work, and you'll have nicely lit streets in no time.
With concrete poles.
Wow.
That's all. And a happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Thank you. I sure hope the Edison company will check the ADA clearances to make sure they are leaving enough room for wheelchair. Because that reminded me, because when Councilmember Chavez mentioned about the windstorm, that's what happened. The Edison company came and put in a bunch of new poles, and then they didn't leave enough room for a wheelchair to get through. So that was a bit of an issue. But anyways, Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist, you have any items to bring up?
No new items other than thank you for everyone who was involved in the Veterans Day celebration. Standing in the gazebo and looking out at our beautiful memorial on such a beautiful day was just, wonderful. And it would have been nice to have more people, but I think the important thing is that our city took the time to plan an event for our veterans. So for those who weren't able to come, I think there were enough veterans there to represent every group of the armed services. So it was a beautiful day and a lovely event, and grateful to our elected officials that came out, Judy Chu and Ed Chow. It's always nice to see them come out and visit our city. Something I'm excited to look forward to is, I continue to have an issue with the Alpha Beta site because I live so close to it, the old Alpha Beta site. And I see it on a daily basis. No matter what direction I'm going, I'm going to see that site. And Brian is working with staff and Scott to take a survey of all the vacant properties that we have in our city. And recently the city of Pico Rivera put in an ordinance for all their vacant lots that basically states that any vacant lot on a busy street such as Temple City Boulevard, they have to maintain that. The owners have to maintain it with greenery, with landscaping, making sure it's just not an ugly fence to look at. So I'm hopeful that when we get the report back, I believe it's going to come back the first or second meeting in December, we'll be able to, at least at a minimum, try and have the homeowners really do something to enhance the look of the property, especially if it's not going to be developed for another 10, 15 years. So I'm anxious to get that report back. And I think that's pretty much it. So thank you to staff for your reports, and everyone have a lovely Thanksgiving.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mayor Pro Tem. And I too echo what's everything been said. It was a great Veterans Day event. And thank you, everyone. And wishing all of you a great Thanksgiving as well. Moving on to our next item, which is addition public comments on item not listed. So we now have start our clock. So anyone who would like to address the council, please call in at this time. And then if you are a caller, and I don't see any callers here. Madam Clerk, are there any email comments?
There, we do have one caller on the line, but there's no email public comment or request to speak.
Okay, so caller, if you are please address the council if you have any comments. So at this time, I will close public comment and also at the same time adjourn our meeting. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and have a great evening.